Morning, everybody. I am Mike, host of the Mic Drop, and today's video is going to be real short. It's not even going to be a part of the Middlebury Entitlement School saga because it's the weekend, and I'm also trying to gear up for something that I plan on doing next week. So I just wanted to share just a couple of minutes with you guys today to tell you a few things. Okay, one, thank you. Two, I mean it. Three, if no one has ever thanked you before in earnest and you've actually felt the gratitude coming off of them when they thank you, feel the thanks. It's pouring out of me for all of you guys. Okay? You have to understand that you're helping me with two things. When I started this mic drop forever ago, it was for my own catharsis. I hit a certain age and I wanted to be able to share my truth in a way that couldn't be impeded. And I'm a verbal processor. What that means is when something bad, good, anything happens to me at all, the way that I am able to deal with it and understand it is by talking about it. A lot of people are verbal processors. Some are auditory processors. They need to hear a bunch of stuff over and over again and just kind of sit and think and process. Some are kinetic learners. They have to do things over and over and over and over again with their hands in order to get that repetition of muscle movement. As you can tell by the sheer volume of content I'm able to put out on a regular basis and not running out of any type of fancy words or layman's words, verbal processing is something I've been doing for quite a while. It's also what makes me a pretty good counselor. There are many, many children that don't know how to verbally process the emotions that they're feeling while in school, and having someone who has been a verbal processor for his entire life, sometimes I'm able to help those who have not learned how to verbally process themselves to grow into their own way to deal and process with their emotions, which that's the whole point of my job. It's a key cog in the school counselors, in what I would view as the school counselors like creed. You know, we want our kids to be able to get out of, once they graduate high school, they are able to think for themselves critically, analytically, stand on their own 2 feet, feel confident about it, go out and share their truth and make a difference in the world. Regardless of whether or not that truth may conflict with the school corporation in which that school counselor works, then you got some corruption, which you guys know more than anything else. But the reason I say all that is because some of you guys have been reaching out to me and like, oh, Malahan, we love your videos. Your content is very insightful and it's very helpful. Thank you. There's just so much, we can't get caught up. And allow me to put your mind at ease, at least for my sake. Okay. The amount of content that I'm posting right now is predominantly for my own catharsis as opposed to taking down a corrupt establishment. Okay? Big sentence. Small sentence. I'm doing these videos to help me deal with my trauma. That's why I started them. It has grown into me helping to deal with my own trauma in a more public way, is helping others to deal with the same traumas they experienced from the same corrupt school system. That is a bonus to me because of who I am as a person. I'm a counselor. I was born to help other people help themselves. I'm not going to deviate from that path. I know it's my calling. In whatever capacity that is, whether it's a school counselor, a therapist, a pet band director, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what hat I would wear in order to accomplish that goal. So, I say that to tell you guys that you don't have to be caught up. If there's going to be things that are going to be actionable, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to try and at least process through that. Okay? So, this video is short for a very particular reason because of the way that I ended the last video towards the end. So, there's a plan. On Tuesday, June 20th, the Middlebury Community Schools is having another board meeting. I have not been invited. Again, no one has reached out to me. No one has said, hey, the trespass is lifted. Please come and talk to us. We'd really like to hear you. None of that. But, again, they're still choosing to ignore the stories of too many of their community members that they don't want to hear. So, I have a plan. Similar to graduation, I'm going to be heard at the board meeting while not doing anything illegal or unethical or trespassing or anything at all. And my plan is that, I've watched the board meeting minutes, and I've watched the video of how long they usually go. And it's generally about, 4 to 5 o'clock. And the first half hour is Middlebury Entitlement Schools clapping themselves on the back on what a great job they're doing, ignoring and marginalizing certain populations of their school system that they don't want to recognize by highlighting the people that they are proud of and the kids that do all the cool things that they want them to do. Which, let me guys tell you something, all right? Middlebury Community Schools is completely okay if it gets rid of its corruption. Most establishments are okay if you get rid of the corruption. Now, there are still plenty of establishments that are left over after the corruption that can still really use some fine-tuning. But after the corruption's gone, the ability for that fine-tuning to take place exists. My goal is not to take down Middlebury Community Schools. My goal is to get rid of the corruption in Middlebury Community Schools so that the Middlebury Community children don't have to face it. And don't have to worry about people killing themselves in the parking lot of the middle school. I don't think that's too big of an ask. To that end, I'm going to be at the Essen House, closer to the area that is parked. You know how that road goes down, and you can turn left and go to the schools, or you can turn right and go to the Essen House. I'm going to turn right into the Essen House. I'm going to be right there, and that's where I'm going to be. And between 4 and 4:30, I will be sharing the. I'm trying to think of how specifically I want to put this. There has been a wealth of information and personal testimony and stories that have been shared with me that the school corporation will not acknowledge, either publicly by banning you guys on their social media, or by making it so terrifying to show up at the board meeting you guys don't want to speak or even go. Oh, and also moving the board meeting to 4 o'clock so that most of the parents that work from 8 to 5 can't show up. And that the only people that can show up are the school board members and the school employees that are done working at 3:45. Weird, huh? No. Corrupt. Yes. During that first half hour, all I'm going to be doing is sharing stories that have been shared with me completely anonymously of different experiences of other people within your community that have shared trauma or their own unique trauma that you guys don't want to acknowledge. And I'm not going to mention any names. I don't have to. I'm not going to mention any specific people, events, times, or places because I don't have to. All I'm going to be is a reporter. It's going to be about me. But because you guys continue to spend most of the board meeting congratulating yourselves on the parts that you guys like to see and not enough time dealing with the corrupt portions, and then when it comes time for the expressions from patrons to deal with the corruption, you like to shut them up, interrupt them, remind them of the time that they have, so on and so forth. Your little corruption fortress of solitude where no one can offer a dissenting opinion without feeling like the judgmental eyes of an entire community are upon them. Shame on you. Shame on you for making it so scary that your own community is afraid to reach out and share their truth. That is the definition of corruption. I can't think of another one. So, I'm going to fight against it. And at 4:30, usually, from what I've observed, the board meeting will stop and there will be a moment for expressions from patrons. Okay? I will stop when it is time for the expressions from patrons portion of the administrative center's board meeting for that night. Why? Because my truth doesn't matter more than theirs. My truth matters just as much as theirs. I don't want to interrupt them. I don't want you to interrupt them, but I can't control that since you won't let me in the board meeting and say, hey, could you be nice and not interrupt her and let her finish? And as long as you're interrupting her, can you give her longer than 3 minutes since she hasn't been able to speak? Reasonable things to ask, I think. So, we're going to blow past all that and we're going to go right to the source. And we're just going to be telling stories. And after the expressions from patrons is done, if there aren't any more that people feel comfortable sharing with or uncomfortable sharing with at that time, and the board meeting wants to go back to what it is that they were talking about before, I will continue to share the testimonies and the stories of trauma from your community that you don't want to see. That way, by the end of the board meeting, you can't sit there and say, well, we didn't hear anything about that. We don't know anything about that. You'll hear me. If they heard me root for the children at Bonnieville, miles away, what do you think is going to be hard about the Essen House? Oh, and in case you're wondering, I'll go ahead and answer all your questions right now. When/if the school board decides, oh, we can't have a meeting on that day because insert any reason here that they'll never give a good enough explanation for. That's fine. I'm prepared for that. Not going to tell you how. I just am. Some of you guys have been worried, like, well, Malahan, what if you cause too much sound, too much noise? Could you get in trouble for, like, disturbing the peace or a noise violation or anything like that? Great questions. The answer is no. We were much, much louder at Bonnieville than I planned to be at the Essen House. Because when I root and cheer for children, I lose my mind in cheer and pep. I go nuts. I love kids. I love cheering for kids. I love rooting kids on when they don't feel like they have anybody rooting them on. It's a passion within me that I'm not quiet about. Any school system that I would work at ever, if I have even one child there that I'm serving, and they are involved in anything extracurricular, I'm going to try to find a ticket to go and watch, to go and show, to go and support. Because I want to. I choose to. Not because of any other reasons. Not for political machinations. Not to build rapport with children. Not even to get in good with that person. Just because they breathe. Just because they breathe, they are worthy of having someone love them unconditionally and support them. Period. That's the sword that I will die on. And I'm completely fine with that. If you breathe, I love you, will be the only thing that I will continue to preach as the basis of who I am across everything for the rest of my life. And my going to the Essen House and reading of these testimonies is showing that love to the community members of Middlebury that Middlebury Community Schools wants to pretend doesn't exist anymore. I wish I was making some of this stuff. It's like I'm writing a bad horror movie, but it's not. This is reality. This is real life. So, if you are feeling advocative, meaning you would maybe like to join me in my advocacy for the marginalized in Middlebury Community Schools, that Essen House parking lot area, that's where I'll be. Feel free to park. As far as I know, it's completely fine. If I'm told differently, we'll be told differently. But that's where I'm going to be. And it's only going to be for an hour. So if you guys are thinking of showing up and showing some support that night, between 4 and 5, go for it. I don't know what's going to happen after 5 o'clock when the board meeting ends. I don't have anything beyond that planned because my mission at that point will have been accomplished. However, if there is more for me to do there afterward that I can still do, I'm going to do it. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm not going to shirk away from it, especially if it's to help the kids. So, I'm going to give you a half a mic drop today and clock this one at 15 minutes so you guys know what's going on. Okay? Thank you. Thank you for making advocacy like this possible. Thank you for being so courageous enough to share your stories. It's easy for a corporation to look at one disgruntled employee and write him off as something we don't want to deal with because it's inappropriate. And it's a whole different thing to have a cacophony of an audience of so many different voices of the same trauma or similar trauma than what I went through, than what John Holman went through, what a lot of these kids are reporting that they went through. You're my heroes. I'm doing this now for you guys too. Not first, not second, two. Taking care of me and I'm taking care of you equally. It's the best way to try to do things. And I've only been doing this for about 3 weeks. Previous 40 years, I didn't pull this off quite so well. So this is a new thing for me. And anytime that I grab something that's new and beneficial for me, if it can help somebody else, I never have a problem sharing it. Okay? So, love you guys. Stay tuned. Monday, Tuesday, you're going to get a little bit more info, and then we'll see what happens. As always, this is Mike from the Mic Drop. Love you guys. We out.